What's going on, good people? It's Khalil Jibran, one time for your mind, two time for your spine. We got a very, very, very special guest in the building. My brother that I met out in France, Papillion the butterfly, the peanut butterfly, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Phenomenal artist. Um, and the crazy part, what I like most about Papillon is that we haven't really worked extensively yet, but I already know and and I'm so excited about the possibilities of what I know is going to be. And it's very rare these days that just the thought of working with an artist kind of gets you kind of going. And right now, and sorry to take this so long on the intro, but I just wanted people to understand where we're coming from.
I
Um,
appreciate that.
it's because Papillon has sent me some beats, and I'm just I'm just living with them, and I just know I just can't even put it in words, but Papillon the peanut butterfly.
Yeah, man. Cheers to
What's
you.
going on, my brother? Cheers, cheers, cheers.
I'm all right. I'm all right. A
How
lot
you
is
feeling
going
today?
on. I'm feeling actually. I want to be truthful
Please
from
do,
the
please
get.
do.
Um, I'm relieved to be sitting down right here. Actually, I just got back from the Caribbean where I visited family and you know, uh, I got some history that I had to deal with. And so I brought back a little bit of rum from Martinique, and I just helped myself to a glass of rum to end a very exhausting day, and I gotta say exhausting few month.
Mm.
So it's good to be with you, sitting down and and checking your vibes, man. Like I told you before we're on the air, I love the hair. I'm so happy to see you feeling free, and I know it feels
Nice.
good.
Oh man, people been asking me like, "Oh, you want
Detangled.
to do your hair?" Oh man,
Nah, man, enjoy.
yes, yes, yes.
See, I cut all
Um,
my stuff off, man. I'm changing the vibes up a little bit for myself. So I'm good, man.
it,
Thank you for asking.
it's good to do that every once in a while.
Right?
But I wanna ask you about your career as an artist, um, your life as a person of color growing up, or just not growing up, living in France,
Mm.
being in different countries, and I just want to expose my people to um, someone as eclectic and well cultured as you, and I want them to see the ingredients that goes into that. So
Man,
I guess I want
yeah.
to act. Yeah, something you want to say?
No, I'm just saying the ingredients are a lot of them are accidental and but they all change the flavor, that's for sure.
Mm, mm, it's a beautiful thing. So, how take us into your journey and your beginnings as an artist?
Oh, well, it's really beginning as an artist and not just an observer was pretty young still. As a kid, I come from a family. I grew up in Paris, France. My mother's American, quite white American wasp,
Okay.
but rejected from her family because she had babies with my father, who was a black West Indian man from the French Caribbean island of Martinique. So now I come up in Paris, um, son of two people that came from abroad, one from the U.S. and the other from the Caribbean, and they met in Paris. And
Mm,
so I'm born in the mid '70s, so they're having a great time because the '70s sounds like it was pretty fun in Paris at the time. And so by the time I'm 12 years old, my father had been a dancer, entertainer. He was in the cabaret doing shows. Um, Limbo dancing, doing all sorts of traditional dancing and just mixing with the nightlife. in Paris, and and but I didn't live with me by the time I grew up, and I'm 12 years old, and I get an opportunity to make a movie.
Wow.
A casting director comes to my school and was looking for a kid that spoke English because we're in Paris, and they wanted a black kid, and I'm you can see I'm not that dark skinned, so the audition was
Right.
particular. Like, you're not black. I'm like, sorry, but we did the audition, and turns out the actor that plays the father of my character was light skinned and whatever, so it fit. And
Okay.
so basically, I started a career as an actor. And as my father, I grew up like in the nightclub my dad worked and lived and worked in and managed. So I was all about the show and stuff, and I wanted to do music maybe one day. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to be in the show. And so being an actor was kind of exciting to me. I got to be a My first job was actually a supporting role, so it was a big deal, and it was a supporting role to the equivalent of the French equivalent of Elvis. This guy called Johnny Holiday. So it was like a big deal. Everybody's like,
Okay.
"You're gonna do that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I don't like his music, but he's famous, and that makes me, part of a big project." So that's how I jumped in to the deep end as far as France goes. It was like, that guy was a big fish in a small pond, right? So he's a big deal, and so I get all that attention. I get to experience what it's like to be in a team working on projects, storytelling, movies, like, but there's like 40, 50 people working on this thing. It's not just an idea you're having. It's like, wow, this is an industry. I'm in the industry suddenly. So I finished that job excited. I was already getting interested in music, and so my salary I got, which I got ripped off now that after the fact I found out. As soon as got an agent, I found out they underpaid me, but that's still a lot of money for me. We lived in a very small apartment in kind of
Right.
the hood of Paris, in the north of Paris, which was at the time just working class and
Okay.
just immigrants and stuff. So we, to me that was big money. Single mom and all that shit. And I'm bringing in some money from my mom. I was like excited about it, and so I bought my first instruments. That's how I just got into saying, yeah, I'm gonna start financing my own life. Being French American in Paris, my mother wanted us to stay bilingual because she knew the importance, like you spoke about, multicultural. She knew that would carry me. She didn't want me to lose the opportunities,
Yes.
So in France, she looked for private schools because you don't get bilingual schools in the public, like in America, actually. They don't even barely teach you Spanish in America, public schools. So it was like, she needed us to study in English. So private schools means money. And at age 12, you're coming into I guess a sixth grade or seventh grade. It's a budget for a parent to pay for private school. I have a big sister who's already being put through school. So my money from my job was put towards my education. So I was empowered by that. I really felt like I had a little bit of an attitude also towards my teachers when they told me I wasn't trying hard enough at school. I'm like, "Yeah, if I wasn't trying, you wouldn't get paid." I was like, I'm paying your salary. I had a little bit of,
It's salary.
you know, by the time I was 16 years
Yeah,
old, like
right.
I was fighting with my teachers. I was like, man, if I'm not getting good grades, because you're not teaching me right. I was mad about it because I was from age 12 when I got that first job. I just kept working. Casting director called me, got me another job, and then introduced me to an agent. I got an agent, started being an actor. I was like, I wanted to be taken seriously because during the week you're on the set,
Right.
you're a kid, but they're giving you money and they're expecting you to work. So they're talking to you like a grown up. And then you go back to
Right.
school and people talk to you like you're a child, and I didn't like that. So I was very fortunate to fall into like business young. It took away some of the playtime that kids have, but it was good. It was good because I got respect and responsibility really early in life. And so most of my money then I was buying guitar and synthesizers because we're talking like this is 89, 90s. It was like synthesizers was a thing, and drum machines and stuff. So I started buying stuff and my room turned into like a little home studio shit. So I was making noise in my room, and over time I just kept accumulating. tools to make my music, I ended up I was passionate about Miles Davis and Jimi Hendrix, and I guess those were my early influences. And I started playing trumpet. I got this trumpet player that lent me a
Right.
trumpet for a while, and I tried it out. Like, I could do this. So I bought a trumpet, and so that's what I was doing. I was just from that moment on. So by the time I'm 14, 15, I was making music in my room. It went from like weird ambient dub stuff because drum machines, you just get into a loop and just it's hypnotic. There's a trance kind of thing going on. Whatever the rhythm you're
Right.
creating, because you're a kid all by yourself, it's just a loop, and you keep going on that. So kept it going, and then I play a little guitar on it, and then I make another loop, and it was all about loops. And I had this little turntable, but it wasn't like the Technics, like you couldn't pull it back. It was like it had the rubber band that would drive it. So I had to take the rubber band off, and so I could pull it back. But then it wouldn't be drawn forward, so I had to do both ways. So it's kind of like playing with that. Had audio tapes, cassette tapes at the time. I would open them up and make a loop and scotch tape them shut so that you can make a loop. So you got that time I was really like trying to find a way to make some music before I had the skills to play an instrument. And while that's going on, I am learning my scales,
Right.
and I'm learning stuff. So eventually, my game started being more interesting on the instrument, on the guitar, first of all. Yeah, so that's kind of how it pulls all together. As in the early days, that's what it is. Music is something that I do as soon as I get home from school. We're talking 90, yeah, like early 90s. So I'm influenced by vinyls my dad had from his club. He had vinyl a lot, so I would go borrow his vinyl. So one of my first records was "Get on the Good Foot," the James Brown cut, and from the B side,
Mm.
there's a 45, and the B side
Okay.
had the next piece. It was like "Get on the Good Foot," and then you flip it over, and this the next piece of the song. It was that, and then there was Sesame Street
Uh,
records. So I was like taking
mm.
Big Bird and like A B B and doing all that, doing my scratching on ABCs and shit on Sesame Street and Roosevelt Franklin. I don't know if you're even familiar with that character. That was my favorite Sesame Street character, who's like African American, uh, purple Muppet, and he was like, it's so funky. I was like, man, so that's what I was doing, listening to that, or even another one was Easy Reader from the Electric Company, which is also one of those kids programs that had the vinyl for that, and that's actually Morgan Freeman. He was young. He's doing these like kind of raps and stuff. So I was into taking that, and that's what I had. So I just cut it up, making stuff out of it. That, and my mom's like had some Brazilian records like Tokino and Jorge Ben, and so it was like a big mix of whatever I could find. I would take the vinyls and I copy it onto a tape. And then it had a double tape deck, so I could copy the same loop again and again on the next tape. So I'd make these loops and overlay stuff, which after a while
Mm.
makes it sound terrible because by the time you're at the seventh layer, the first layer is kind of like dim. You can't really hear it no more.
Fade
So
it
then you
out.
get into
Yeah.
yeah, but once you realize that, you start creating techniques. Okay, so what I want in the background to record that first, and then and
Mm.
what's in the foreground's got to be the last layer. So it's
Mm.
basically you're building your song backwards with these other layers in the back, and then the beat has to be more strong. So you record that last, and it's there. It sounded terrible. I got some tapes. I found some tapes recently. It sounds terrible, but the process is something that now when I produce music, I still like I'm able to tell you the story now because it put an imprint. It's just practice, hours and hours of doing some random shit. It's not random after a while. It
Right.
becomes foundation, and then you can
Routine.
build,
Yeah.
and detach from that and try to be professional because eventually it became my job.
Mm.
So
Mm. So, how was the scene in Paris when you started the transition from being an actor to playing your trumpet to producing these loops? Were you moving around? Were you performing?
I was so the acting was the job, that was the money, that was also part of the fun. Keeping me, I get to miss school and shit, so it was always good.
Right.
Um, but I finished my schooling. I was really trying to be serious about that to honor my mother, and also just because I didn't know what future held. But as far as performing music, I my loops and stuff was what I would do, and then I invite, you get a homie from school comes over, and so I did some stuff with some friends. We had some Dixie jazz music we looped, and then he was his brother from Ghana who was in school with me, and he would write rhymes, and we were into the Tribe Called Quest a lot and De La Soul. That was a big influence on us, and or like Dana Dane and Slick Rick and that type of like storytelling. So we would do a lot of storytelling, and at the same time, I was into dance hall music like Yellow Man and Ika Mouse, Michigan and Smiley. That's a whole generation of the dance hall thing in Jamaica. So we would have this kind of hybrid sound. I did a little songs with him in the apartment. That's what we would do, and then my trumpet. Um, I would play just for me. I just worked my trumpet in my corner. Had a little bit of uh, a project with a brother from St. Lucia, actually a grown man. He was like 35 years old when I was like 16. But
Okay.
I had enough money to travel. I had an agent in Paris, but also had a manager in London because
Mm.
that I'd met through work, and I decided maybe I could give it a try in London. So I go to London sometimes to try to do auditions for movies. Um, so when I went there, I go see this brother from St. Lucia who was a grown jazz player, bass player. His name was Adrian Bass, and he was an amazing musician. And he was one of those guys that played 8 hours an instrument, 8, 10 hours a
Mm.
day. And it was a great, role model for me. So I go to his place. I don't know how my mom would let me do this, just leave. I was like, I'm going to London. It wasn't a day. There was no cell phones and all that. So like when you're leaving mom's like, okay, good luck. You're taking the train to a boat across,
Right.
the English Channel, and you take another train and you get to London. And I go to his
Wow.
apartment back in the days, but like to pay the gas for the gas to keep running in the house. You had to put like tokens and shit. It was a whole nother reality. England was a trip to me. And so I go there and he had gigs in London. So he would be like, we have 3 concerts this weekend. I'm like, okay. And so he had his brother on the percussion, he was on the bass, and so they do anyway. And I was supposed to hold down the trumpet piece. And I was like, well, I don't know the songs or nothing, right? Because we weren't sending MP3s at the time. We were just like, just come over and we'll work it out. So I would get to London, we eat, some pasta or tuna or something. We just and he played me the songs, and I had to learn them for tonight, that type of shit. So that was
Oh
cool
wow.
because it put some pressure on the job part of it, because it's easy to make music at home. But when you're gonna go to a club, and I was underage, and London's cool with that though. They weren't too asking me for, they weren't carding kids and shit. But I was definitely underage getting into these jazz clubs at night and performing under pressure because I was not the best trumpet player. I have a lot of soul, and I could pull it off like that, but I didn't have the theory and the skills that I felt it were required. So I was really intimidated. But that was a beautiful piece of my story for me. So that lasted a little while. The acting got me into the habit of doing auditions, and I had done an audition for music project, and so I ended up recording an album when I was, I think, 15. It was like a kids band. It was a fully, artificial project. It's like a record label. It was Phonogram at the time. It just became, no, it's Polygram. Anyway, the labels that don't exist, but they were sub labels that were bought out by eventually by Universal Records and all that shit. And so it was the days of just like making quick money, off of records. And so they needed 5 kids that could sing or rap. And so they took me to represent France. They had like these 5 kids from around Europe, and the themes were supposed to be ecological, which was a new thing at the time. No one was talking about. There was no Greta Thunberg or whatever. It was like there was no conscience about ecology at the time. But somehow somebody came up with the concept. Let's get these 5 kids from 5 different countries in Europe talking about the planet. And so I ended up in this huge project that was sponsored by, one of the partners was a manufacturing company in Hong Kong, some Israeli dudes that had a business in Hong Kong making toys and bags and like fashion wear and stuff. And so it was basically a scam to just make a bunch of money. But for me, what it was an opportunity to get into like the biggest studios in Paris with
Mm.
producers that had just made the biggest hits, and they were like, make us a hit, and so they made us an album, and so we did a full album. Terrible music. I hated the music, but I didn't
Mm.
care. I had the best, quality equipment around me. I had like we were sleeping in hotels, doing the whole thing. We were doing little mini tours, doing
Mm.
TV shows in Luxembourg or Germany, and kids are signing autographs. Kids didn't actually know, they didn't know it, but we
Right,
got to.
right,
It was
right.
almost like we faking it, like doing a pretend superstar career for a second. And so I
Right.
got to see all the ropes of how the business works at the time, because business has changed since then. But I was like, oh, I got this. And then the album never came out. Well, the single came out, and then the album didn't come out because the producer ran out with the money. It was like one of those messed up, purely business deals. But when
Yo.
that shit happened, he still owed me money. He still owed all the kids money for our work in
Wow.
the studio and all that. But I didn't care because I was so happy that that record never came out because the music was terrible. I hated it.
Mm.
But I got to be in the studio. I got to do because it was recorded in Paris. All the other kids would go back to Berlin or London or whatever, but I lived in Paris. So when it wasn't voice recording time, when it had all the team together, I would still sneak into the studio and hang out and see. So that taught me a lot about like, man, what's a compressor? What's a like,
Mm.
what's a sound booth got to have? What's the process of making music? And so I gotta say, man, my whole childhood was about learning how show business worked, how to avoid pedophiles, how to
Mm.
how to fucking cope with insanity, how to
Right.
say no thank you to cocaine, how to fucking
Mm.
but how to make a record, you know,
Right.
how to make a music video, like what does wardrobe mean? How do you organize a photo shoot? So I got a lot of experience that way, and that was a
Mm.
blessing for me. Meanwhile, I was making my beats and my little things and making my music, but it wasn't gonna go anywhere because I had no unless I followed their agenda, I wasn't gonna release and make money off my records. I was just making
Mm.
little songs for me, and now I'm happy when I find an old recording of it. But I
Right.
did get a lot from understanding how fucked up the industry was. That's kind of the best thing I learned is what
Mm.
to avoid, and how to save your soul at the right moment, but still like make them think you're down for a second, just long enough
Right.
to get your
It's an
word
art to
across.
that. Right.
Man, it's crazy because we're artists, but and we got predators around us. I was a child, man. Literal like predators, around.
Mm.
And so you need to learn to navigate that. And I feel very fortunate. I've heard some terrible child star stories, man, that people got fucked
Mm.
up on, whether it's drugs or just, abuse or whatever. I was so fortunate and clever. I just could see shit. I was paying attention. I was a child. 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, they're smart. They see shit.
Right.
And so that was me, and I got to see like all the grown-ups acting crazy as of certain hour because they've been doing cocaine and drinking, and I know not to hang out after a certain hour. If you go to the release party, you go just to show and do the pictures, but you leave early, even if the party looks fun. That shit,
Right.
I learned that. So I feel like I really got the good side and didn't suffer too much of the consequences of being around, uh, you know, narcissistic people, crazy
Right.
people.
So around what age were you when you started to like spin off and kind of do your own sort of thing?
So I thought I was gonna be able to make an album by the end of high school, but I had to find people to make it with, and my classmates were still children to me.
Mm.
And a couple of guys I remember had talent, would have could have pulled something off, but they weren't in the psychologically ready, you know. But artistically they were. But when I started committing to my music, it was um it was with a funk man. I don't know if it's funk. His brother from Cameroon, and he's still around. He's still making music too. This brother Sango, he was He was a young man and I was younger, but I had that energy. And he was like, "Yo, you speak English, you sing in English. Let's do this stuff." And he was a bass player, and I would play guitar and sing. So we started writing songs, and he wrote some nice songs. He had some good songs too. I think he still plays some of them actually. We fell out because he took advantage of the fact that I was a kid and I wrote some of these lyrics. He ran off with the projects, tried to sell them. It didn't work for him, so then he felt bad, but it's too late. So quickly
Mm,
I moved from there to this other brother, but I always had needed a partner. There's something about that I have to work on still. I needed a partner to work with. So I ended up with this other brother from Senegal in the hip hop kind of uh, vibe. He was like his aspiration was to be like the African Busta Rhymes, you know. This is right around
mm,
right a bit before like Wuha and all that shit when Busta was like heavy hitting and maybe the first Outcast, like me and you, your mama and your cousin too. You know that? You remember that elevators? It was that era kind of, and so and we had our own twist on hip hop because he's from Senegal and I'm writing in English, but we're putting a Wolof in there, so it's got this African flow in there. So it's
mm,
got this American, hip hop, culture foundation, but I was writing all the lyrics for me and for him.
mm,
And then I was trying to throw in, I didn't speak Wolof, but I was learning it. And I was trying to throw in, I was saying, man, you should be rapping in Wolof because when he speaks, he was so flamboyant and shit. I was like, that language is so musical. I don't know if you're familiar with Senegal and its music, but Wolof has got a swing to it. So I was like, let's fit that in. So I was trying to do this mix because I was already American and French speaking. So I was like doing this Frenglish kind of mixing languages. And so I was like, let's pull this African vibe in. So my name at the time, that's actually when first got the name Papillion, the peanut butterfly. But while I'm doing that, you're always changing names. Yeah, everybody had all these different names, and so I had my Senegalese name. I was Miem Chona and Borom Chona, the problem solver, and I had all these. So I was like, yeah, let's do this and that. So we had this thing called the Baifal Association. Baifal is a war kind of the soldiers of the Murid. The Murid is a Muslim brotherhood. So I started getting into this thing, and to me, it was important. The spirituality was really important in it. I wasn't committed to any particular religion, but spirituality, I've always felt is a big piece of what I need to do. I can't move forward without the spirit. So I was like borrowing his attitude and his culture. So while I'd go to his house and record and write for hours, and he'd do his prayers and come back, and then we eat, and then we record some more, smoke a lot of weed, and he's super charismatic. I was like, yeah, but then that kind of crashed too because his ego was so huge, and I was too young and humble to challenge him.
right.
So from there. I eventually stood up for myself. Said, "Man, I'm writing all these lyrics." We went to studio. We made a full album in studio that was never released. We found a producer, this white dude that was like old man, full of money, that was in the music industry since the '60s, '70s. That released like the Village People. Remember that band, like a village disco band? Some French dude
Right.
produced that, and so we meet this guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I got money. I'll get you. I'll produce this record." So we got studio time, and we started doing all this stuff. But then it wasn't going, and he never did anything with it. So by the end of that, I've met this other guy, this DJ called DJ Wamba. DJ Wamba started coming out and making beats with us, and and uh and Wamba's like, "Yo, man, you got to get out of here." I was married. I was married at the time to a young painter from Los Angeles, and I was already in my
Mm,
thing. In the not the That's when I got into the graffiti life. Hanging out with like brothers from the Bronx and anyway, brothers from the U.S. that had made it in France and Italy. So I already had my scene, but I didn't have my own project off the ground. And this brother said, the Wamba said, "Yo, you got to meet this guy John Bonsai I make music with." So I'm like, all right. So I meet this Bonsai guy. John Bonsai is this Polish dude, but speaks French, and he grew up in Paris, and he's rapping. He started writing. He's a writer, but he started writing in French, and he wasn't a hip hop head yet, but he was getting into it. So then Wamba was making beats, and he was kind of teaching the whole culture to this guy John Bonsai. And I was like, this guy's got skills. He can write for real. And Wamba's like, that's why I want you to know him, and you guys should meet. So we started messing around, just for the record. The B side has the instrumentals. At the time on the vinyls, just start writing and rapping. And the three of us, so DJ Wamba, John Bonsai, and I started this band called Visionaires. And so that was the first time I finished a product. We made a mixtape called Blink at the time, and we put it up online recently just because we're like, we got to release this now because we did a tape, literal tape, and at the time and CD. And we pushed it to the magazines and radio stations and started getting some attention because we were doing this bilingual thing. He was rapping in French, and I was rapping in English, and
Mm.
uh, and it came together really nice, man. It was really fun for me. It was, he's my brother. Every day I'd go to this house and whistle. He'd open the door. I'd go upstairs. We'd be writing for hours, then go record. And yeah, we had some good jams. And that was the first one we brought to the record labels. Because then some people that knew us was like, yo, you got to come meet my friend. He works at Virgin. We went to Virgin for a meeting. They listened to it. They were out. Oh, wow, this is all right. We'll call you back. We go to Sony at the time,
Mm.
V2. Anyway, there's all these little sub labels too,
Is
and we're going to all the
Sony
record
in
labels.
Europe?
And yeah, in Paris at the time.
Okay.
And so there was them, and meanwhile, I done another product with BMG, which was another one of the big labels at the time. And so I was starting to know people, and people that knew me were like, "Oh, he's doing stuff,
Mm.
but it's kind of weird. It's in English. What is it? What is he doing? Where is he from?" So it didn't pick up on those. But when we got to Sony and to Virgin, they were starting to both talk about which one of us. You know how record labels kind of work synchronized. These are major labels, so they got their budgets and they got their agenda and their calendars. So they was like, okay, we might take this. We need you to adjust a few things. Next year we need a new project. We need like this kind of like hip hop because we were doing hip hop, but kind of like really good spirited. We weren't angry hip hop. We were lyricists, and we were kind of fun. We were just silly sometimes. So they were into that. They were like, okay, we need kind of like something that can go mainstream but still represent hip hop because we need credibility. But at the time, France had is going through some culture, you know, complex where the Minister of Culture created a law, and they voted something into law, which was that the radio stations had to play 50% French language music because France was losing its identity because there was so much international music coming to England and the US, right? So to defend, basically to sell records, to defend French culture, they were like, we need more of our music played on the radios. So they said to us, this is great. We love your energy. We will put whatever the budget was onto this and a 3 album contract. And this is a time where people were writing contracts still that were ridiculous. They had contracts, you were like in there for 3 to 5 albums sometimes. And they would give you the advance, but then you owe them money. The whole, you never owned the
Yeah.
masters. It was not okay. So I wasn't loving that, but at the same time, it was tempting, right? But the one thing that turned me off is that they said, yo, except we need you to rap in French.
Mm.
And I was like, I mean, I speak
Like a deal
French
breaker.
fluently. I love French, but hip hop didn't work for me in French. It's a metrics. You got to
Mm.
understand English has a flow. Creole works. Wolof works. And like there's all these languages that work. Lingala works. Swahili works. There's a lot of languages that work on the 4/4 beat, on that beat.
Mm.
But French to me didn't work. And there's a lot of French artists that were okay, but they just wasn't working for me. So I was like, yeah, I could do a waltz of French music because French has commas and long 3 syllable, 5 syllable words. It was too much to fit on the beat. I didn't find it groovy. So I was like, and why should I change to sing in French just because you guys want airplay? Because the idea is that if we don't have French music, we won't get airplay because the radio was already full of like whatever it was, Michael Jackson, Elton John, American hip hop,
Right.
all that stuff. So they needed something to be you know, in
representative
French,
of
because
French.
and it was messed up. It didn't ever work. That law didn't work because what ended up happening is that they would play the French music like at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. when no one was listening. All day it was still that American stuff, right? So
Mm,
it made no sense. But for me, I was like, I told my boy, I was like, man, I can't do this because that means that my verses, I gotta fill them out. And I'm just, they said you could do the hooks in English, but you gotta speak French on the verses. And I was about my integrity. I'd been doing music long enough for myself without any attention that I wasn't willing or ready to give it up. I was ready to make movies and play someone else's script. But as far as my
mm,
music was concerned, I was gonna do what I wanted to do.
right.
The band, I destroyed the band, man. It's fucked up. I feel bad to this day. I was like, guys, I can't do this. Like, yo, we almost signed to this label. We would have been on tour. They were so mad at me. And I said I can't do it. So broke up the band, and after that, I kind of lost it for a minute, but I ended up making a solo album eventually, um, because I met a studio that let me do what I wanted and said they would
So
co-produce
how
it.
old were you during that whole period of time when they wanted you to
That's from
rap on
my
it?
age 17. I started really writing rap, like and rapping, and I was, yeah, like 16, 17. Before, like I said, I was doing like kind of funk, writing songs, doing a lot of soul kind of vibes, jazz. But by the time I'm committing to like a pen and a pad, I'm like roller skating in Paris and 16 years old, writing, like stopping at every corner, writing down my rhymes, keep going, just doing my
Right.
thing. And so that was my rap years. Started, yeah, 16, and it wasn't nothing deep at the beginning. It was just wordplay and phonetics. And then, but by the time I was 18, I was serious, and my message was really serious to me. Actually, some of the shit I wrote then is smarter than the shit I write now, honestly. Because
It's like that.
the young bloods we got, like
It's
you convinced,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
You engulfed in the belief and
right?
all.
And yeah. It so happens the beliefs I still agree with some of them. So I'm like, that's all right, man. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, by the time I got to my solo album, I was like a young man, and I was able to be proud of what I did, you know, and because I had that, I'd won a battle, which was to not give in. First of all, to the film industry, because I was typecast. I eventually gave up acting because of being typecast. I couldn't take it anymore because I was
Mm,
getting good job. I was getting jobs where they weren't good. They were making. I was playing criminals and shit. Just because I'm non-white, basically, France was not ready for the main character to not be white, and so I was getting all this weird character. Then I got mad one day and I said, "Call my agent." I said, "Stop. I'm not working anymore." Um, and in the music, it's the same thing. You know, I met, like I said, I did that record when I was 15. It was ridiculous. I did another project. It was like a boys band thing. They wanted me to sing and dance. Like, I was like, I can't do that stuff. It's ridiculous. And so I quit that. And then I did my other my records that actually believed in with my boy. And then they tried to change it on us. So by the end of that, I was done. So I started making my own music, and I fell out with the the studio I recorded in. So we never released it in big scale. So I had that frustration for a long time, feeling like, damn, I could have made it, but
right.
the trade off was so not okay. So I've had a good life, man. I had a good life since then because since then I've been just myself. Um, but some of my people that knew me before say, "Man, I'm sorry you never made it." I'm like, "Shit, man.
Mm,
I just survived. I would have been dead by now if I'd followed the plan that the record labels had for me. It was
mm,
not okay, man.
mm.
They had all the gifts for me. They had all the sex and drugs and rock and roll ready waiting for me, man. But I was like, it's gonna kill me. It's gonna kill
Right.
me. So just my heart. It would break my heart first, and then I'll just start acting stupid. So I feel very fortunate, actually.
Papillion. So I do want to ask you. You mentioned before that you were married at a young age.
Yeah,
So like, how
I
was that,
was,
and
man.
what in your mind or what was going on at the time that made you say, I want to commit myself to someone else in this way?
It was a good person. She was a healthy. She was a smart, great artist. She was a painter. We, at this point, in retrospect, I feel fortunate that we grew up together. We didn't grow up together, but as of age 17, we met. She was in art school in Paris, American woman, and and I know we just fell in love, and we were very charismatic young people, and everybody loved us. We kind of got caught up in a role in the thing, where like, oh my God, look at these beautiful young people, and they're just so talented and all that. So I got into that, and we started believing in ourselves a lot, which was good. But then we started believing in our couple, which didn't end up working long term. But it was a great experience, and I say we grew up together because those years were important years. It's important when you're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. You're becoming an adult. Like ain't nobody gonna. Maybe your parents got you if something bad really happens, if you're lucky. But it's that age where it's like you talk to your parents once every 4 months or whatever. It's like
Right.
so you got to hold it down. And so she was very responsible. So was I. We were making money. At least I was making pretty decent money. She was making good art. She's a fantastic painter from Hollywood. She we lived in France together, then went in and out of London, and then went to Los Angeles and Hawaii for a while. And it was just a cool life, man. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna marry you, of course, man. Everybody thinks we're amazing. We got married in L.A. and then
Oh wow.
life changed. Yeah, it was one of those funny weddings, a little chapel indoors. Like this little dude looked like Yoda. They married us real quick, and like whatever. It was like almost a Vegas wedding, but we were into it. It was for real. Like we were actually, that's what we wanted to do. But I got in trouble with my family afterwards because my family was not with us, and we just kind of just did it real quick.
Right.
But that was interesting. But we were it's kind of role play, man. Like I said, I started being having adult responsibilities from age 12. Um, for most things, I moved out of my mom's house pretty early and stuff. So I felt like it was time. I knew how to handle myself, and I could be a man. So I did that. But then life made it that we didn't. No, it didn't work out for us. I was a young. I also was not always loyal. It was just silly. It was not. Didn't work out. But I committed to that person for a while. She left me, and I was like, a couple of years of pain, and I was over it eventually because I was like, yeah, whatever. Wonderful person. And to this day, my heart's still with that person for real. When you say stuff like, better for worse to death do us part, it's true. I think again, like we were talking about lyrics, when you're young, you write stuff and you still believe some of it. It's still true. But I know that it wasn't my life path, and I had to move on. So I moved on, and then then I got married again. But way later, I was not gonna get married again after that heartbreak. I was like, okay, I done the marriage thing. What's next? But I'm married now. It's kind of cool. I got over myself, and so now I'm happily married with kids in school, man. But it's not the same thing. It's like love and love. It's
Mm.
like there's so many definitions to it. And marriage can be so many things. But I think it was just a testament to me thinking, trying, or being trusted to be a grown up before I was a grown up. You
Mm.
know. But I don't
Okay.
regret it because nothing bad happened.
Right.
But it was good, man, because it made me feel like I was on my way to something. So I've had a lot of lives. Only only got married twice, which I never thought I'd be married even once at the beginning.
Mm.
But life offers you opportunities to grow, regardless. And I
Absolutely.
definitely um, appreciate that. And
So.
everybody I come across has given me a lot. I was fortunate, very fortunate.
Mm. Beautiful.
You didn't get
So.
married yet?
Not yet. I'm learning from all the men around me. I'm trying to take notes. What to look out
Take your
for.
time.
What to and all you guys say the same thing. Take your time.
Yeah,
I
man. I
remember I
mean,
worked
because
at a
it's life, you know.
right.
Marriage is a concept, you know. Love is different. Love is love, man. You love. You gotta
Mm.
love people. You gotta take care of your people, whoever they are, wherever you are. But if you
So
know, marriage is an
can you break that
experiment.
down a little bit more? Love being a concept, and I mean marriage being a concept.
Marriage is a concept. Well, it's culture. It's a culture. You know, it's like it's a
Mm.
social contract.
Mm.
Um, love is a whole different story. Love has got so
Right.
many definitions, man. I mean, depends on the context, but I was I've been driven by love, man. I've always been driven by love, um, in all contexts. But but um, but yeah, marriage, it was a convention for me when I got married the first time. Actually, I was already in love and I was already in a relationship, and to me, I didn't need to prove to anybody that I love this person. So marriage was silly. I was like, I don't need to get married. But we were like her family had religious, you know, beliefs that made it really hard for her to face her family while being with a man that she's not married to. So when we actually got married, my feeling was that the pressure was coming from her having to be to honor her father's faith, and that she couldn't be in a relationship if she wasn't married. So that kind of sped things up. So definitely I have an opinion on that. Not doing things because other people think you should be doing it, because I did that. I got married too early. Honestly, I think it was too early. Because it put a pressure on our couple that kind of might have been the cause of the whole, you know, separation eventually,
Right.
because suddenly we were people that love each other but also had to you know, represent something. And you tell anybody, like, you're 18 years old and you're like, this is my wife. Like, oh, you mean your girlfriend? Like, no, it's my wife. People are like,
Right.
oh, really? And like, it's like now you
It's
represent
a little
something,
heavier. Yeah.
right? And I think that was a lot of pressure to be somebody's wife, to be Papillon's wife. At the time, I was, you know, I was doing stuff, so she was somebody's wife. Plus, we were in France most of the time, so my circle was her circle, because
Right.
she met people through me a lot of the time. So it was too much pressure on her to not be herself. So then she had to break out and be herself. But by then, you know, I couldn't have that conversation. Tell her, don't worry, I agree with you. Let's not stress ourselves. And but you know, even while we were married, actually, some of my good friends now, some painters from the U.S., some graffiti artists. Well, they used to be graffiti artists. Now they're contemporary artists. They don't like to be called graffiti writers anymore. But we're still friends. And back in the day, I remember like not allowing myself to hang out with them as much as I would naturally, because I'd introduced them to my wife, who was a painter, and I realized that she needed her people, and so I kind of
Right.
sacrificed part of my circle to give her an opportunity to have her circle. So she'd be with the artists, so she'd go out and paint and hang out with them. And I was like, damn, I was feeling kind of like, damn, I wish I was hanging out with my boys, but at the same time, I was like, nah, she needs her space. So it's hard, man. Being married is like it's people expect shit from you, and it gets you trapped. So I tried to free her from some of it. I also did stuff like trick myself into my mind was thinking like, oh, my wife is at home. Let me go out. Like, I just need to get out of the house. You know, my wife is annoying. I'm like, what the fuck is that? That's some old man shit. And I was like a kid. Like, it's your woman. It's, you love her. Why are you acting like that? So it messed with my mind. It messed with our mind. I think being married too quick, because we didn't even know what it meant, but we were doing it because we were supposed to.
Mm.
So yeah, you got to be careful with that shit. You can't just play a role that was written by someone else, or a culture that you haven't quite vetted yet. By
Absolutely.
now, I can understand. I could decide if I think it's a good thing or not, whatever. My second marriage was similar. Is similar. I mean, initially, there's stress with the family because we're not the same religion.
Mm.
Again, different religions, but still, I'm not even committed to one in particular. I wasn't actually, at least I wasn't saying anything about what my religion was. But again, when I met the mother of my kids, her family was not cool with me. I mean, they were cool with me because we got along, but someone was bothering them, and we got married, but it still wasn't a real wedding because I wasn't converted to their religion. So it's like it's tough, man. That marriage is an institution, and institution means that there are rules, and they're not set by your heart or your soul. They're set by a culture that was built over generations of a certain faith or certain customs and rituals. You know,
Right.
so you gotta know when you commit to something that you don't know about, not so good. You do your homework first before you make a
So
decision like that.
how was the divorce process for you?
It was I don't know. It was just administration. We were separate. We were in different countries by then. We were separated. And she was in England. I was in France. So she found a lawyer over there, and we just sending paperwork back and forth to get it done as cheap as possible because we didn't hate each other. We just
Right.
had to move on. She had to move on. She started a whole new life already before I knew it. You know. Um, I think what was hardest about that divorce was that I had bought her a guitar and she never played it.
Mm.
And as soon as she got with the next man, she started a rock band with him and started playing guitar. I
What?
was like, fuck, man, I bought you that. You know, that was the hardest
Right.
piece. It's like, damn it, because you know what it is. People don't want to show the people that taught them that they learned from them. There's this kind of weird pride
Mm.
thing. See, you feel me?
I
And
feel
that's
you.
how I felt it. She never wanted to.
Mm.
She didn't want. She wanted people not to know who she used to be. So she had to come into a new world and be this new person that already had all these things. But because I'd seen her, like I said
Mm.
earlier, we became adults together. So I knew a lot of that process, and I knew her youthful her, and I knew her feminine. I knew her grown up version. So I felt like I had a lot of the data. And I think there's something
Right.
to that when you're young, you don't want people to know. Like I want to come
Yeah.
out and like know nothing about me. I'm not like that. I
Hmm.
can't be like that. Like see, like we've been talking, and I tell you whatever you ask me about. I'll tell you the whole story because I believe right now is a time of reckoning. We're in a true at this particular stage in history in human history. We have no time to make shit up. It's over. You got to tell the truth, work out what's real, what's not real, because there's a lot of work to do and there's a lot of shit we got to be doing now. And if we waste time trying to like pretend, we're not gonna finish the job before it's too late. So we got a lot of issues coming up. Humanity is going through a lot right now, and so my piece of the cake is make sure the ingredients are on the label. Everything you want to know, I'm gonna tell you because I need to build from now on. And if I give you false information or half of the information, we're not building on a strong foundation. So that's where we're at now. So you gotta really I think it's time to speak the truth. And that's why, my people now that know me, they know I got beef with nobody. Everybody know like if I have something I don't like about something, I'm gonna say it. And so we're free from fake shit and we're free from having to imagine what do you mean when you say that. People ask you, what are you trying to say? Like, I'm not trying to say, I just said it. I don't try to say shit. I say shit, right? I don't mean anything that's not been said, except in my songs, there'll be the meaning that you heard, and I mean it. Plus, there might be a second and third meaning because it's wordplay. So I'll be like, you do poetry, and there's multiple layers to that. So in that sense, there's some extra um, knowledge and extra data in my words, but there's never like a contradiction. There's never a lie. There's never nothing I'm hiding. If anything, you find anything behind my words, it's more, it's a
Right.
second meaning, but
Right.
it's not contradictory and it's not, not making shit up because, and I know I'm too lazy. My memory's shot. I can't remember if I lied to you, I wouldn't remember what I told you, so I wouldn't know how to stick to the lie. I have to tell the truth, man. And my memory is so simple. If I tell the truth, I'd never forget it.
All right. Thank you for that. Big gym for all the young people out there. You letting us know what's the real because a lot of times we fall into these social contracts because there's no one around us to really have these conversations with and educate us on their experience. So we just end
Uh,
up doing a normal trial and error.
I mean, that's the thing. Trial and error is important. It works on some stuff, but you don't have to do it. You don't have time to do it with everything. You got
Exactly.
to trust. You got to be able to live. Use other people's experience. And unfortunately, that's not how our brains work. But you know what? We ain't got time to try everything and mess up once.
Definitely don't.
So we gotta listen to other people's story, and especially when we're sharing a story, we gotta tell the truth so that the person, once they've heard it, they know it, and they can count on it, and then they can use it. 'Cause if I fake
Absolutely.
my shit, if any of my story is fake, you can say, "See, well, he did it that way," and then they're gonna try because I faked a success story, and they'll fail, or faked a failure, and they'll think, "Oh, I won't try that," when they should be trying it. So
Absolutely.
it's really important at this point in my life. We need to do shit together. We need to not make shit up. The only stuff we got to invent is dreams, is like suggestions for potential futures. Like, let's try this, let's
Right.
try that. I don't know. Like, but not make shit up that we know isn't true. Got to make shit up that we think might become true. We could do that. We should do that.
Absolutely. So I got two more questions before we wrap up. One I want to ask, how was fatherhood for you, and how did fatherhood affect your artistry and the time that you were able to dedicate to it, and I guess how did children affect your marriage as well?
Well, children change everything. My children, it feels like my children came before they were born.
Wow.
Let me tell you what I mean. Um, I had relationships before my relationship with their mother, and at times, in a relationship, you tend to try to imagine what if we did this together and had children and there's a family or whatever. And a couple occasions, I was with the wrong person, and I wouldn't know how to tell you where it came from. Well, at the time, but there's kind of a spirit that would speak to me and tell me this one. I remember one particularly wonderful woman, and it could have been a great life, but a wonderful woman who wanted to be my wife and have my babies, and I was like, I can't do it. And she has to ask me why, so then I have to explain. So that was painful. But I was like, I had to tell her something that was true, but it might make me sound crazy at the time. I had It's like a spirit told me that wasn't. It's like, that's not my mom. That's not my mother. I can't come
Mm,
to be here. So I put an end to that relationship. Maybe something else triggered it too, but all I know is that I really to this day remember that feeling that my children told me when it was not the right person, not to go down the path. It wasn't a god. It wasn't an angel. It wasn't nothing. It was clearly my descendant that was
right.
like, in order for me to arrive and actually be part of this life experience, you need not, it's not through this woman and your union. And when I met their mom, it was yet another person you meet in life. But by the time, one day before we even started flirting and becoming a couple, I met this woman and I was feeling her. I was like, this is the mother of my kids.
Mm,
And that drove me to pursue a friendship with her. Eventually, we started a relationship, a romantic relationship. But the day I realized that, um, actually, I visited her in the south of France. I was doing a tour. We had released a record. Me and my boy, we were dropping off the vinyls in all these record stores all around the country. And so I'm like, yo, I know this girl in Marseille, man. We got to go there and check them out. Plus, there's a couple record stores. Got some connects. So we do that, and then I go see her. And she dropped me off at the train station. And I wrote a song about it's on my album, Calligraphy, called Want to Stay. The song is called Want to Stay, and it's about that moment where I was leaving the train station. My train's leaving, and she's on the platform, but I was writing it on the train. I was looking out the window at her, and it's that I knew that I was gonna be connected to this woman for the rest of my life, and
Mm,
and that voice was the voice of that kid, you know. And so then my kids come up in my life one after the other. You know, first I had a kid. We were in Paris, and it was kind of surprising. We had this baby. I had just released my album, my first solo album. That's how I met her actually, because I was preparing the promo for my album, and she was organizing events. So um, I'm like, yeah, I got this album coming out and stuff soon next year. And by the time the album comes out, and we had a baby. It
mm,
was funny, because you know how albums take a minute. It tells me this album took a minute to come out because we didn't date for a minute. But on the album cover, my first album was called The Amber Dawn. On the back of the album, on the cover art, there's the échographie, the how do you say the uh the image of, you know, when a woman's pregnant, they do the imagery. We call
mm-hmm.
it échographie. I forget what you call it in English.
Okay,
And you
machine.
see the baby. The what?
Ultrasounds.
Ultrasound. Thank you. So we did the ultrasound. We get a picture of 2D, and it's like really cheap. Man, I could see the profile of the kid, and I put him in the artwork because the back of my album was this wood grain, and I worked it into the wood grain so people that wouldn't know it's there, but it looks like a water stain on the wood grain. It's actually a profile of my first baby.
Mm,
And all that to say that he was born. I released the album. He's born. I'm on tour to promote the album, and I'm on stage. I had a live band, so I was doing this hip hop act, but with full live band. And I get to the mic at one point in the concert. I didn't feel right because he was just born. 8 days after he was born, I was on stage doing this show, and I told the audience because I was feeling weird, you know. So you know, in between songs, we talk. You know, we artists, we talk to the audience. Some of us have a tendency. So I was like, well, I got to tell them something, and I told the audience, this big festival, that I just had a baby, and that always has this, you know, yeah, yo, man, and everybody's all excited for you. So it was cool. That's a kind of
right.
way to hype it up. So my band's like, yeah, man, good move. Like it's, you know, move. And I'm like, but then I carry on and I tell them, you know, I love all y'all, but I'd rather be home right now. I miss my baby. I
Mm,
just had my first baby, and I don't want to be touring the country and being away from my family. And everybody gets all emotional, and then we start the song, and it was like sweet, you know. And so it kind of worked, I guess, for that night. But after the show, my band members was like, "The fuck, man? What are you talking about? Telling people you're not gonna tour, you know?" And it was true. I ended the tour. I said, "Fuck it, I can't do this." I was so painful, man. And my child, so it stopped me in my career to have a baby in that sense. But it didn't stop my artistic evolution. I actually made better music since he's been born. Then I had another baby. We lost a baby, and then we had another boy that came up. So we have two boys now, and my wife has a big boy. He's 33 years old already. I got a big man because when I met her, she had a boy already. So I raised him with her. I'm a grandfather, son. I'm like, I got grandkids and shit. So
wow.
these people, like my kids and the grandkids, my nieces and nephews, they make me happy, man. And they take a lot of time, so I'm not as prolific, but
Right.
the music I make is I'm enjoying it. I'm happy. It's like, and also it made me have to enjoy music in my soul, in my heart, in my head. I got people say, "Oh, so too bad you're not making music anymore." And now I'm back in it, but for a minute I wasn't making any music. People were being like, "Man, you stopped music and shit." I'm like, "Nah, it's just y'all can't hear it."
Mm,
I'm still making music every day in my head. I got albums, man. I got lyrics. I got harmony, and so it gave me a new perspective on what it meant to make art, to be an artist. And so when I release something now, I want it to be perfect because I don't want to I don't want to half-ass shit. Back in the if I before I had kids, I just released a bunch of do featurings on all people's records. Didn't matter, just do 16 bars on somebody's thing, whatever, and it's not mastered properly, whatever. But now I'm like, no, if we're finishing it, it's gotta be tight because I'm not taking time away from my loved ones to just do nonsense. So
Right.
now actually it gave me a lot of power and it gives me perspective because they play me music. I hear what they want to listen to. I have to honor it because I got to listen to what they like. Because nothing hurts more than when people tell you that your music sucks. But you listen to, 'cause even if I mean I know some of this shit they listen to is terrible. Some of the stuff I listened to when I was a kid was terrible, but I can't tell them that all the time.
Right.
But they heard me say I don't like this or. But I'll sing to anything. I love music. So now a lot of what happens with music because I had to take a step back as a performer and as a music producer and recording artist, it made me really enjoy when someone other than myself makes a record I like. Like I heard some stuff a few years ago. I was like, man, they can do that. I'm so happy because our shit was eclectic. My music was kind of always kind of off the chain, like whole nother category. I wasn't sticking to the trends because I was like, well, we could try something else because that's already been done. And now I'll
Right.
hear people. Recently, it's like I was listening to Earth Gang a couple years ago or stuff like that. Now it goes, it changes beats, the rhythm changes up, music stops, something else happens. But now they'll play stuff and they'll cut the sound in the middle and bring it back and whatever. Everybody's doing that now, and it's authorized. And I'm like, yes, I'm like that's what we were doing. We were breaking the rules. There was serious rules when I was younger. We were trying, like I told you, with Virgin and them, there's serious rules. Got to be a 3 minute song. The hook's got to come in by the first minute. The intro can't be more than 20 seconds. It's got to, there's all these rules for airplay, for radio stuff. I'm like, now I'm hearing stuff. I'm hearing artists that are instrument. The lead is an instrument. That was that we couldn't do that. We couldn't have like, and on my records, you'll hear it. There'll be like, first like it'll be a verse, and then there'll be like 16 bars of a saxophone solo, and I'm like, yeah, because I want that space. That's where this is supposed to happen in my ears. But record companies and radios like, yo, man, we don't play instrumental stuff. We don't do this. Oh, what is that? Is it rap? Is it reggae? Is it jazz? We don't get it, right? But now you can do anything. And so all that to say that the fact that I've not been in the fight trying to get airplay or trying to get famous or trying to be in the spotlight means that I can sit back and watch other people that have that opportunity or that platform do stuff that we worked so hard to be allowed to do, and now that people are allowed to do it, I feel like we set the foundations for some real shit. So I'm happy I stepped back honestly, and yes, to the angle of being a parent, that is indeed the thing that made me have to slow down because no, I didn't have to, but I didn't want to be on the road all the time away from my kids. It just wasn't an
Right.
option. So I chose to do that, and then life gave it back to me and thanked me for it by showing me beautiful art made by others and stuff that like I listen to songs I think I wrote them. Like, oh
Mm.
yeah, hear what we did this week? It's not my song. I heard some of your stuff. I was like, mm-hmm. Felt like I was in the
Mm.
studio when you did. Well, I wasn't, but I felt when I heard it, I was like, that's us. And I became part of the soul, the creative soul of man. I'm like, we are music. And now my kids are grown. Well, my youngest one is about to be 12, and then I got a 16-year-old at home. But they're already. I mean, I know within a blink of an eye they'll be out of my life doing whatever they want to do. And I'm getting ready now to get back in music. I'm having a good time now making music. So I stepped back. I didn't stop making music. I can't say that, but I stopped trying to promote myself. So, for example, when I moved to the States and then to Dominica, I was producing other artists. So I was making music for others because I removed my ego from it. I was like, when I can serve someone else to make their record, I feel good and I feel free from judgment because I'm just listening
Right.
to the artist and trying to get out whatever I think is going to help them get their message across. And so that is my position now. And I think being a parent is part of that. It's instead of like trying to be the one that has all the experiences, you set the stage for your kids to have a beautiful life experience. And they don't even know you're doing it. and then they complain when they don't have shit. But it's because you always hooked it up so they had everything they needed. They didn't even realize you've done the work.
Yep.
So that's what happened. And music now that I make has gained from that because I've learned to use what I have instead of using it for me and showing everybody how cool and smart and fresh I am. I used it to say, yo, let's make him look cool and fresh and like make him happy. And so I gotta thank my kids,
Mhm.
man, all day.
All right.
Yeah, they did
Absolutely.
not slow me down.
So the very last question, I always ask all my visitors that come on. Um, Death is a universal experience. We're all on this earth for a set amount of time, and we all strive to make that the best time as we can. So when Papillon leaves this earth, how does he want to be remembered, and what does he want to be remembered for?
Oh man, you know what? Every day will be a different answer, but right now you're asking me that. Truth is, I want y'all to remember that all I wanted you to know is that you're all right, and I'll make sure you have the feeling like you're all right when you're around me. That anytime you was around me, you got a glass of water, and you got a massage, you got the right music in your ears. I showed you the view. I just get to, so that's kind of me, man. I just want to make sure people remember that we. I, I want to be in that kind of direction. Like, oh yeah, remember Papillon? Yeah, man. Yeah, he's all right. I felt good. Yeah, I just chilling. It's not about any of because you asked me about some of my personal history this time. Usually, I don't. I mean, I share, like I said, anything you want to know. But truth is, what matters to me is how you doing, man. And my favorite word, one of my favorite expressions is "see you tomorrow."
Okay.
And so that's kind of what I hope people just come and celebrate, and then move on and see each other tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was the Papillon interview. I'm Khalil Jibran, one time for your mind, two times for your spine. Expect some really dope music coming from me and Papillon. It's coming very soon. So this interview was a precursor to that. So stay on the lookout. And Papillon, let them know where to find you.
Yeah, man, you can. I'm doing my thing. On Instagram, you can find Papillon with the peanut butterfly on Instagram. Most of what I'm posting these days is my interactions with nature. Um, trying to grow some trees and help people connect again to nature and my music. You can find my music on Bandcamp, so that'll be papillon.bandcamp.com or on the Spotify. Although I think I'm not sure Spotify's redirecting the cash my way when y'all listen on it, but Bandcamp does. And I got a website. It's a butterside.com, so you can check that out. And you'll find me. I'm in the stars, you know.
Here we are. Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
But we thank you. We thank you again.
Thank you, my brother.
Hope
It
to
was
have you back
beautiful.
very soon.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, I'll talk to you soon, my brother.
Yep. Take
All
it
right.
easy, bro. One love.
Peace.